So today's session is all about getting started with the Jamboard. So the Jamboard itself is a physical device. The software is almost secondary to the physical device. The physical devices haven't ever really taken off. They're not very large. They're really designed for office use rather than educational use. And they were also premium products, so very expensive. But the software is available, and the software has been rolled out as part of G Suite for Education. It is actually a core app, so it belongs with all of the things like mail, calendar, docs, etc., as being something that can be easily accessible and available to all schools without needing the extra parental permissions and things. So from that point of view, Jamboard is quite interesting. Now, Jamboard exists in several different platforms. Exists as a piece of web-based technology, jamboard.google.com. And from here, you can see jams, and you can create jams, and you can join other people's jams. But it also exists with some slightly different features as an iOS app for Apple devices and as an Android app for Android devices and for Chromebooks. So I thought we'd have a look at that on the Chromebook as well. But we'll start off with looking at the web interface on a normal laptop. So if I've got a ready-made one, that's great. They stay here. These are actually part of my drive. So if I save these, they'll actually go into my drive, but they're also available from jamboard.google.com, which makes them nice and quick to come back and find. So if I go plus new jam, it will create a brand new jam. And the jam is a bit like any other collaborative document. At the moment, only I've got access to it. If I share it, I can share it with other people. So you can share a jam through things like Google Classroom as well. But at the moment, this is private to me. If we had the luxury of having the hardware, this would push it to a Jamboard that was nearby to us so that we could work on the physical hardware. Quite limited controls on the web version particularly. So I've got a zoom feature which can be quite useful. I've got a background. I can set background, so if I want a bit of lines for guidance, then I can set things like a background. And clear frame basically clears the page you're looking at, and at the top here we move between the frames, so in other words the pages. So move backwards and forwards and expand them to see which ones we've got. And then the tools are down here at the side, and they are a limited stock. I've got a pen tool, and if you click on it, we've got 4 different styles of pen and only 6 colors, and that's it at the moment. So I've got, and if I take my pen over to the screen and use my mouse, then yes, I can draw. It's not a particularly pleasant experience, unfortunately, using a mouse. The thicker pen, a bit more of a marker. The highlighter, let's change color, why not? Gives me the ability to highlight, and obviously then the other ink shows through underneath, so it works just like a highlighter. And then we've got a paintbrush, which is just like a watercolor effect, and you do get a bit of layering. Again, could be more useful for anything like highlighting. Don't forget we've got the clear frame button at the top. Rubbing out is an interesting experience, so let's just put some ink back on the page. If I pop some yellow ink on the page and I want to rub out, the eraser's only one size, which is quite small. And so rubbing things out, oops, especially with a bit of lag, which I'm getting on the web version currently, is not the most pleasant of experiences, which is where the clear frame actually comes in quite handy. So Jamboard, I wouldn't think of it as a presentation piece of software. What I would say is it's a collaborative workspace for just quickly jumping on and doing something with somebody else. And that makes it a lot easier. So we've got a couple of extra features. We've got sticky notes, and this is where you put your text, and it's the only real way of putting text in. And then that appears as a sticky note, and you can carry on adding more text, etc. And there's a little blue bar that grows along the bottom as you type, so you know how much space you've got left in your particular note. And it will create those notes until you hit cancel. Once you've got them, the arrow will allow you to move them around. It will allow you to rotate them should you wish. And then in the dots, you've got an edit to go back and change the text, a duplicate, and a delete. So that's notes. You've also got the ability to add images. So yes, I can drag and drop an image from my device. I can go for Google image search. I can grab something from my drive or shared with me or recent. So that's quite nice. But however, if we look for, oh, let's look for dog. There we are. Sometimes you get some quite nice. These are all royalty-free images. Again, these are Google filtered, royalty-free. So you have the ability to add these sorts of things. So that works quite nicely. Let's try and add another image. And I grab one from Drive. Inside Jamboard, I had some images, some screenshots that were taken. These are quite large images. There are various bugs. And we'll look at this in a bit more detail in a second. So I'm going to move to a second device. So that's working okay on the web interface. I'm managing to put images in. I can resize images. I can rotate images. I can clone and duplicate them, or I can delete them. So images works quite well on the web-based version. And then the last button I've got down here is a laser. So basically, it's just a way of highlighting things to people who are working with me and sharing this remotely. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to name my jam just so that it's got a title. Jam. Let me turn it into James. And that now is saved, and it will be available at jamboard.google.com for me. And I haven't shared it with anyone else yet. So if I switch devices, now you can see the screen of my touch screen device. It's got a pen with it. Therefore, the pen works as the touchscreen interface as well as my finger. So it's quite good for me to interact with the Jamboard. If I go to jamboard.google.com, it will show me my jam files. And there's the new one, Testing Jam, that I've got. If I try opening it, because I've installed the Android Jamboard app, what it's doing is it's actually at the bottom of the screen, opening up the Jamboard Android app, which is going to give me some extra features. So here we are in the jam I was looking at earlier. And if I go to a new screen, which is this bubble now that's dropped down. So the layout's ever so slightly different. There we go. I've got some extra pen devices now because I'm on a touch screen. So I've got the original 4 pens and I've got the original colors, but I've also got this thing called assistive drawing tools. And these are really nice features that work in a touchscreen environment. So they work on the Android and on the iOS app. So this is where actually owning an iPad and using this Google technology on an iPad, you get benefits over the web-based version. So if I go for the first assistive drawing tool, it's a text tool. It's not particularly accurate. And if I start writing something like hello, it's fairly good at recognizing that and turning that into text. As you can see, once it's turned into text, I can manipulate it and move it around quite easily. It doesn't cope very well with sentences. So if I go back to the pen mode at the top, but it's remembered that I'm in making text mode, so that's brilliant. If I put my name is, and we'll see what it happens. So that's managed to do the whole of that. Quite often it breaks up things as you go and breaks sentences. Let's write something else. Let's write, this is Jamboard. My writing is terrible. See what my Jamboard. Yeah, not surprised that my writing isn't terribly good. I've got no ability to edit something when it's created, so I'd delete it. So again, deleting, 3 dots, delete, or because now I'm on the app version, I've got this little delete bar that appears at the bottom. So that's one more go at writing it. This is Jamboard. Oh, there we are. It's managed it now. So not a foolproof technology by any means, but this is the other way of getting text onto the screen if you've got a touchscreen device, other than using the sticky notes. So that tool, limited use. There's also a shape tool. So if you're doing some simple maths, maybe, and collaboratively maths works quite nicely, you can draw a circle. Well, you can draw an ellipse. It decides not to convert it to a circle, which somewhat annoys me because I'd much rather it was. There we are. I've done a better circle now. And I can do things like triangles. I might even better get an equilateral. No, I'm not sure I can draw an equilateral triangle carefully enough. I can do squares, absolutely fine. I can do pentagons, but don't try going above pentagon, because as soon as you try and put a hexagon in, even though I think I've done quite a good hexagon there, it turns it into a circle. So it's not terribly foolproof, by any means. Now, of course, I've got this eraser. And if I click on the eraser this time, I've got the clear frame option. So that's slightly different in the app version. But let's clear all that out the way. And so I've got some more working space. So the shape tool, again, limited success. The last tool is quite a nice feature. It tries to work out what you're trying to draw. So I'm no good at drawing things like a bicycle. But if I draw something like this, immediately it's recognized that that could be a bicycle, and it's giving me some suggestions of ones I could use, and I can just click to change it. So actually being able to quickly put together bits and pieces, this works quite nicely. I got my image. If I go back to the select tool, I can duplicate it, I can delete it. So drawing tools, eraser, just as we've seen before. It won't let me erase an image, however, but it would let me erase ink. So again, we've got limits on what it can and cannot do. So if I squiggle some ink, grab the eraser, it will rub this out. In fact, it does it with an animation of bits of ink being rubbed off the page. But again, it's hard work rubbing out because you can't resize the eraser. And I've got my highlighter, which I can use to highlight things to my remote audience. So I've got a few extra options now in the extra things. So I've got sticky notes, we've seen those already. I've got images. However, I've had issues with images. So I think we had a dog earlier. Let's go cat this time. I've got an image search, and yes, I can grab a picture, drag and drop it out, and that works absolutely fine. I've got drive content. So that picture I pulled up before of Jamboard, it's a piece of drive content. And so here I've got PDF files I'm not going to install, but if I go for that same screenshot I had before and put that in this time, I end up with something that's minute that I can't resize. So that's exceedingly frustrating because on the web version, I get it nice and big and I can resize it. Images are easy to find and add on this app version running on the Android app, but has restrictions at the moment, has limitations at the moment. Resizing things is a nightmare. So I can get to drive content, absolutely. I can activate the camera because it knows you're on a device, mobile device now, and I can use the camera to screenshot something. So if, for example, I was going to sit down and do some maths with some children from my class, I could say, let's share a Jamboard, open up the Jamboard. I could then say, right, use your camera, take a photo of what you've just been doing, put it up onto Jamboard, then we can pick up a pen and we can go over it and we can think about it. If we've got access to a touch screen, particularly, it makes it much more accessible. You can do it with the mouse, it's just not a very nice experience. And then there's an image library as well, which is another option, which again looks at things you've got stored on your device. And I've got nothing stored on this device particularly, so that's not particularly brilliant. And then the last but by no means least, there's what they call stickers. And again, these suffer. They're only available on this version, but I can't resize them. So it may be we want to do some work talking about a mobile phone device. And I put the image on and I'd like to better resize it, but for the life of me, I've not been able to get that to resize. So we've got some options. So make a copy, rename the whole file, delete the whole file, add people if you want to quickly bring people in. Share Jam as PDF. So once you finish something, if you'd like to keep a record of it, that's the best way. You get a PDF file, which you can then easily share. And we've got share frame as an image, so you can convert it to an image. So that's the features really of Jamboard, and it's got some nice positive things. I could see that people could do things like sharing it and do some spelling. You could ask a child to write something out using a Meet to chat, and they could be working on the Jamboard, and you can see exactly what they're doing, and you can correct stuff as they go, particularly if they've got a touchscreen device, works with a touchscreen device. But we have these limitations. So here we are back in that Jamboard file. This is the web-based version, so I've been working on this quite merrily as myself. If I move to the second screen, including the stuff that I had deleted, it's there, which is a little bizarre. And yes, I've got the images, and yes, now we're back in the web-based version. I'm allowed to resize the image. I don't have backgrounds on the app version. I don't have the zoom feature, which might be quite handy to put a zoom in on a particular thing when you're having trouble with the size of the image. And so there are some nice features on the web-based version, but then of course I haven't got handwriting experience. So if I was a teacher and working from my classroom, I could see a use for this, because you may be able to plug your computer or have an inbuilt computer as part that's connected to a touch screen, an interactive board in your classroom. And therefore, yes, you'd be able to pick up that pen, work on that board, and this would be the screen that you'd be able to interact with it using the web version and get some of the best experiences. There are issues with both versions. We've experimented with sending these to a classroom. It is possible to share a Jamboard, but again, there is no control once you've shared it. You can't stop children going into the Jamboard and using it without you. So if I go into Blackbird class, there we are. We'll meet at 2:20 today to look at things using Jamboard. Classroom Meet will be active just before, so that's the sort of thing I would suggest we do while we're working remotely, is establish that we're going to be able to talk to each other, and then we're going to share the Jamboard. And then through classwork, you can have a link to the Jamboard. So you could have one that's just set up always just to be used as a quick working space, and you clear it all off and carry on. Or you could have it set up and for this specific task, if you like. It doesn't really, there's no right or wrong. And clicking on that link will open the Jamboard then. So there we are. I'm in Blackbird classes Jamboard. We can move on to the second page. We can start working together. So as a quick collaborative workspace, it works out quite nicely within the limitations. Now I'm back on my laptop. I'm going to have great trouble trying to write anything with the pen. But if I need to do something like we're going to do some long division, I can write out numbers that are vaguely recognizable, and I could talk through things. So yes, collaborative space, quick use, absolutely fine. In the shared environment, when we end up maybe jumping into an environment where we have some children in the class and some children not able to attend still, I think the Jamboard might be quite nice, because it would be a way of bringing in those children. If you say we're going to be doing some maths at 11 o'clock, the children in the class can be there with you. You can have Jamboard working on your big whiteboard, and they could even be sitting there on the device in the class. The children who are able to access it at home, if they've got a touchscreen device, particularly are going to get the best experience. They'd be able to interact, have a go. It is possible to write and to draw and to put numbers in with a mouse. It's just not a very nice experience. So I can see this could be a quite good bridge for short-term little pieces of collaborative work, or trying to get children to show their working or how things work. So I can see it's a brilliant tool, but a bit limited at the moment by some of the restrictions on it. You can find out more if you just Google Jamboard. There's lots of information. There is, from this page, there's some getting started guides and some bits and pieces you can download, and some videos, bits and pieces. So there are resources that are becoming available. Introduction to Jamboard app, 5 tips for using them, and then there's these PDFs, first day of Jamboard guide. So these are all available if you just Google Jamboard, and to use it with your Google account, it's just jamboard.google.com. Or if you go, let's just go back to the main page. If you go from Google and Jamboard has to be switched on, it isn't on by default, then once it's available to you, yes, it will appear as part of the waffle again to get you to jamboard.google.com. But that's all it's doing, taking you to jamboard.google.com. And then you'll see all the Jamboards you've got access to. Sharing is something you're going to need to do. I say you can do that through Classroom, which is what I did for this classwork one. I just shared it as an assignment, and it gives them access to it. Or you can actually create a Jamboard, and then once you've created the Jamboard, you can share it with people you want to have access to. So once you're inside it, you've got the share button at the top corner there, which allows you to share. So Jamboard has some drawbacks, has some restrictions, particularly on both versions. And hopefully the little niggly things are going to disappear and the both versions are going to become more accessible. I know it's something that Google's still working on, but has got a place certainly as a quick collaborative tool.